Hey there, welcome back. Tonight, we were taking a quiet walk through a city that has been dead for nearly 2,000 years, and yet, somehow, still feels awake. Rome. Not the romantic postcard version with crumbling columns and pigeons, but the living, breathing one that used to smell of wine, sweat, and olive oil smoke. The Rome that belonged to bakers, prostitutes, poets, and pickpockets. The one that began to stir when the day finally shut up. So let's slow down, breathe a little, and step quietly through the streets of a city that never really slept. All you have to do is settle in, get comfortable, and let the story drift over you, like the soft rustle of pages in a dusty old library. Before we start, a small favor. If you enjoy these slow, sleepy journeys through history, consider liking the video or subscribing. Only if you really enjoy it. And while you're here, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love imagining this invisible web of listeners scattered across the world, drifting off to the same tale under different skies. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Picture it. The sun has just slipped behind the 7 hills. The last blush of light slides off the marble temples. For a brief, breathless second, Rome exhales. And then the noise changes. The shouting of merchants fades. The rumble of carts dies down, but new sounds take their place. A lute somewhere, laughter spilling out of a doorway, sandals slapping uneven stone. The city doesn't sleep. It simply changes shifts. You walk along a narrow street lined with tabernae, small taverns glowing like open mouths in the dark. Inside, people drink, argue, and forget who they're pretending to be. Smoke from oil lamps curls upward, sweet and heavy, with the scent of rancid olive oil. It's not pleasant, but somehow comforting. The smell of civilization decomposing politely. A cat darts between your feet. Someone laughs behind you. A deep, drunken laugh that sounds like it's been marinating in bad wine since noon. You glance over your shoulder, but no one's looking at you. They never do. In Rome, everyone's the center of their own story. The cobblestones are still warm from the day's sun. You can feel the city's pulse through your sandals. You pass a group of dice players hunched under a flickering torch. They squint, argue, swear on Jupiter's name. A coin clinks against the stone. Someone wins, someone loses, and both claim divine favor. It's a religion of chance, Rome's unofficial faith after dark. Farther ahead, a woman leans out of a window, calling to someone in the street. Her hair is unpinned, her voice casual, bored. Maybe she's selling something. Maybe she's just lonely. It doesn't matter. In this hour, everyone's a little of both. The night has its own economy. Wine for courage, bread for balance, lies for entertainment. You wander toward the forum, half expecting silence. But no, there's a different energy now. Not the daytime thunder of politics and power, but a low, steady hum. People strolling, gossiping, pointing at statues. A boy runs past you, laughing, clutching a stolen apple. A man yells after him and gives up before the echo fades. Somewhere nearby, a flute begins to play, soft, aimless notes, meandering like the Tiber itself. It's a small thing, but it fills the air. You realize that sound carries differently at night. It clings to walls, hides in corners, lingers longer than it should. Maybe that's why Romans feared the dark, not because of what it hid, but because of what it remembered. The air cools. You pull your cloak tighter. The lamps along the main street flicker and gutter. Olive oil and soot again. Rome smells like it's thinking too hard. You pass a baker's shop. Inside, a boy kneads dough by lamplight, his hands moving in slow rhythm. Tomorrow's bread begins tonight. You can almost taste the faint salt and yeast in the air. Behind him, his father dozes upright, head resting on a sack of flour. Civilization runs on tired men like him, people who never stop working because the city never stops wanting. And yet, despite the grime, despite the noise, there's something oddly peaceful about it all. Rome at night is a paradox, a world both exhausted and alive. You can feel the tension between empire and intimacy, between the marble gods above and the sweaty mortals below. Now, a distant shout, then laughter, then silence again. You turn down an alley where laundry hangs between buildings, damp from evening mist. Somewhere a baby cries, somewhere else someone sings. You can't tell if it's a hymn or a drinking song. In Rome, they were often the same thing. At the corner stands a small shrine, a lararium dedicated to the household gods. Two little clay figures guard a niche lit by a single candle. Offerings sit below, a crust of bread, a few grapes, a copper coin. You pause, instinctively lowering your head. Even the most cynical Roman knew better than to ignore the spirits of the night. A breeze drifts through, carrying the faint smell of the river, mud, fish, and the kind of damp that seeps into bones. It's not romantic, but it's real. Rome is always real. You find yourself outside a thermopolium, a Roman version of a fast food joint. The counter is lined with clay jars of stew, beans, and olives. Behind it, a man ladles something steaming into bowls, shouting prices, ignoring insults. His hands move like clockwork. Around him, men eat standing up, talking about politics, gambling, or nothing at all. The wine is cheap, the conversation cheaper. Someone tells a joke about Emperor Nero. It's not a good one, but it earns a cautious laugh. You never know who's listening. Rome teaches discretion as survival. Farther along, the Subura district begins. The respectable air of the Forum fades, replaced by the smell of humanity, sweat, perfume, and sewage, an olfactory democracy. The streets here are narrow, loud, and alive with laughter that sounds slightly desperate. It's the laughter of people who know tomorrow won't be much different, but they'll face it anyway. You hear a woman reciting lines from Ovid or trying to. The rhythm's all wrong, but the effort's touching. A drunk poet claps in approval, then vomits into an amphora. The performance continues. Art is endurance. Above, the stars are faint. Rome's lights too many, but you can still see the moon reflected in puddles between the cobblestones. It looks warped, broken, like it's been drinking too. You wonder how many centuries it's watched people just like you, walking these same streets, making the same mistakes, telling themselves it's only for tonight. You stop for a moment, just listening. The murmur of the city feels endless, 1,000 small sounds overlapping. The creak of wooden shutters, the clink of a bracelet, the sigh of a sleeping mule, each one insignificant, yet together, a kind of symphony. Rome's lullaby. And here's the thing. For all its noise and danger, the city feels strangely safe. Maybe it's the rhythm, the predictability of its chaos. Maybe it's the sense that everyone, from senator to slave, ends up here eventually, in the same streets, under the same moon, craving the same small joys before the next sunrise. A soft breeze rustles your cloak. The lamp flames waver. Somewhere, temple bells toll faintly, marking the change of a watch. Midnight approaches. You realize the Romans divided their nights like their days into precise segments of duty and desire. Even the darkness was organized. The air smells faintly of burning cedar. A group of soldiers passes by, armor gleaming under torchlight. They're laughing, loud and careless, swords clanking like metal laughter. You step aside, unnoticed. Authority never looks down. Behind them, a beggar mutters to himself. A dog sniffs a discarded fig. A rat considers theology. Rome, in all its glory, continues. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the heartbeat of it. Steady, relentless, ancient. The same pulse that built aqueducts, conquered continents, and still found time to get drunk before dawn. Because night in Rome isn't an ending, it's a beginning, the moment the masks come off, and the city admits what it really is, flawed, hungry, and beautifully human. So you keep walking, past the flickering lamps, past the laughter, past the smell of wine and smoke. You're not sure where you're going, but that's fine. In ancient Rome, the night doesn't need a destination. It only needs company. And now, you're part of it. You wake the next evening in the same city, as if Rome had only paused to yawn. The streets are still damp, the lamps are being lit again, and the air smells faintly of smoke and wet stone. Somewhere, a rooster mistakes the moon for the sun, which feels about right, because the Romans were professionals at being busy, doing nothing. You think of them as conquerors, engineers, philosophers, and sure, during daylight, they perform those roles. But when dusk slides in, when the marble cools and the markets close, something else takes over, a kind of lazy genius, the art of idleness, perfected. Romans even had a word for it, otium, leisure, but not the kind where you lounge around uselessly. No, this was sacred idleness, time for the soul, or at least for better wine. You find yourself near the portico of Octavia, a colonnade that still hums with the afterglow of commerce. The day's vendors have packed up their goods, but a few linger, not to sell, just to exist. Men sit on fallen columns, discussing nothing with alarming seriousness. Someone gestures with a bread crust as though delivering philosophy. Another yawns mid-sentence. This is otium in motion, half conversation, half performance, entirely pointless. And that's the beauty of it. You sit nearby, pretending to understand Latin well enough to follow the debate. Words drift through the evening air like lazy flies. Virtue, honor, debt, women, theater, death. The topics sound enormous, but the tone is casual. No one expects conclusions. Rome has already built enough monuments to certainty. Night is for speculation. A man walks by, carrying a jug of Falernian wine, the good kind, which means it only tastes slightly of vinegar. He pours some into small clay cups and hands them around without asking. Sharing, after all, is cheaper than generosity. You take a sip. The taste is sharp, oily, and surprisingly warm. Not pleasant, but like many Roman experiences, it grows on you through sheer persistence. The first swallow burns, the second numbs, the third begins to feel philosophical. Someone starts talking about politics. Specifically, why all politicians are idiots except the one who happens to owe him money. The group nods in rhythmic agreement. Rome's greatest democracy was never its Senate, but its public complaints. A gust of wind rolls through, carrying laughter from a nearby courtyard. You turn and see a small group playing dice on a marble step. One man cheers, another groans. Someone accuses Fortuna of favoritism. Someone else invokes Jupiter to audit the results. You smile. Every empire needs a scapegoat. You wander closer. The dice rattle across stone. Tesserae, carved from bone or ivory. The stakes aren't high. A few coins, a loaf, maybe dignity. But for the players, the tension is divine. Because for Romans, leisure isn't relaxation. It's performance. Every gesture, every loss, every sigh contributes to the theater of existence. Rome doesn't have an off switch. It just changes costume. Nearby, a street musician plucks a cithara. The melody isn't quite in tune, but it fits the night. Slightly broken, softly repetitive. Children chase each other around the columns, pretending to be gladiators. One trips, scrapes a knee, and starts crying. His mother sighs but doesn't move. Even pain, tonight, feels optional. You lean back against a wall and listen. The soundscape is strange and comforting. Laughter, footsteps, the occasional donkey bray. The city's heart slows to a steady rhythm. You realize that the Romans weren't escaping the day. They were digesting it. Their nights were not for sleep, but for processing the absurdity of existence. Now picture the elite, reclining in their villas. They call this leisure too, though it looks suspiciously like indulgence. Cushions, servants, trays of grapes, perfume thick as syrup. A flute player hired solely to look soulful. You'd think it's glamorous. It isn't. Half of them are pretending to enjoy poetry recitals. The other half are pretending not to notice that everyone else is pretending. Rome, for all its marble and empire, runs on collective theater. You can almost hear it. The droning of verses about heroic deeds, the polite clapping, the subtle coughing when a poet's metaphor collapses mid-line. No one interrupts. To do so would be uncivilized. They simply endure, eyes half closed, faces glowing in lamplight, waiting for dessert. And when the poems end, when the guests applaud like well-trained pigeons, the night truly begins. Conversation drifts toward safer pleasures. Gossip, scandal, what so-and-so wore at the last festival. Someone claims to have seen a ghost in the baths. Someone else swears they've met a god disguised as a merchant. You nod politely, though you're only there for the olives. You glance outside through an open doorway. The gardens shimmer faintly under torchlight. Crickets sing. A slave refills cups with mechanical precision. It's peaceful, but sterile. The kind of peace that only exists in houses too rich to be interesting. You slip out, leaving the poets and parasites behind, and walk again through the city. Rome's lower quarters are livelier, louder, smellier, more honest. Here, the art of doing nothing feels human. Two men sit on a stoop, arguing about the moon. One insists it's a goddess. The other calls it a coin, flipped by the gods to decide who suffers next. They both make sense. You decide to stay neutral. A group of young women walk past, laughing too loudly, carrying amphorae that may or may not contain wine. The smell suggests yes. One winks at you, or maybe she's just blinking against the smoke. Hard to say. Further down, a man with no teeth sings a hymn to Bacchus in a voice that could wake the dead. He's not bad, just cursed with enthusiasm. Coins clink into his bowl. In Rome, passion always pays better than talent. You pass a barber's stall where the owner still works by torchlight. His customer, half asleep, mutters something about a bad omen. The barber hums in agreement while cutting too much hair. Tomorrow, both will claim it was fate. The night folds around you like a worn cloak. It's not quiet, but it's gentle. A dog barks, someone sneezes, a jug breaks somewhere. Life continues at half volume. Rome's secret, you realize, is that it never separates the sacred from the trivial. Leisure isn't laziness, it's resistance. Against the noise, the orders, the ambition of daylight. The Romans know the empire doesn't rest, so they rest for it. You stop by a fountain, one of those decorative troughs that has seen more history than most emperors. The water glimmers under torchlight. You dip your fingers in. It's cold, startlingly clean. A small boy watches you, then does the same, smiling. For a brief moment, the empire's hierarchy dissolves. You both just enjoy the sound of water. Then a voice shouts from a window, "Go home, thief." The boy bolts. You stay. That's leisure too, choosing stillness when chaos demands movement. Around you, the air thickens with smells. Roasted nuts, damp clay, overripe figs. Someone lights incense near a shrine. The smoke curls like thought. You breathe it in, cough slightly, and feel absurdly alive. A couple passes by, arm in arm, whispering. The woman's laugh is bright, unguarded. The man says something that sounds poetic, probably wasn't. Love in Rome is just another form of pastime, unpredictable, inefficient, but undeniably entertaining. You find a spot on a low wall and sit, watching the city perform itself. Everything moves with lazy precision, slow enough to study, fast enough to stay alive. You think about how future generations will imagine Rome as all battles and emperors. They'll forget this part, the meaningless hours that gave meaning to everything else. And maybe that's the real tragedy, not the fall of the empire, but the loss of its boredom. Because boredom, here, isn't empty, it's rich. It's full of sound and smell and texture. It's a pause between conquests, a sigh between speeches. The Romans built an empire on order, but their nights belonged to chaos, and they cherished it. You stand again, stretching. The stones beneath you are cool now. the moon climbing higher. Somewhere, a chorus of frogs starts up from the Tiber banks. The sound is ridiculous and perfect. You start walking home, wherever that might be. Rome isn't about destinations. It's about the small detours that make the night last longer. A baker sets up for the morning shift. A drunk sleeps under a statue of Mars, snoring like distant thunder. You pass them both, feeling the strange intimacy of shared exhaustion. By the time you reach the edge of the Subura, the lamps are burning low. You pause, looking back at the city, the rooftops, the smoke, the faint music. It's messy, imperfect, alive. And you realize something simple. Rome doesn't conquer the world at night. It forgives it. That's the art of doing nothing. And the Romans were masters of it. Night again. Rome always looks better by torchlight. The shadows do most of the editing. You walk down a narrow street where the walls lean inward like conspirators. The stones are slick from spilled wine and something less poetic. A group of men crowd around a table outside a tavern, arguing about the end of the world or the price of anchovies. Both equally dramatic topics here. This is where the city truly breathes, not in its marble halls or sacred temples, but in its taverns, the smoky, noisy, unglamorous hearts of Rome. You step inside one. The air is a recipe: wine, sweat, roasted chickpeas, and the faint bitterness of lamp oil. Every tavern smells like this, a comforting reminder that civilization hasn't improved much in 2,000 years. The counter is stained, the tables uneven, clay cups clatter like bones. The tavern keeper, a woman with the patience of a minor deity, pours wine that could double as cleaning fluid. You nod politely and drink anyway. It's not about the taste, it's about the ritual. Around you, people laugh too loudly, gesture too wildly, and live too briefly. One man tells a story about a gladiator who wrestled a lion and survived, though the lion, he claims, retired soon after from embarrassment. The others roar with laughter, slapping the table hard enough to spill their drinks. No one minds. The floor already belongs to the gods of spillage. At another table, a philosopher nurses a cup of vinegar disguised as wine. He's lecturing two soldiers on the meaning of virtue. They nod, occasionally, pretending to listen. One of them interrupts to ask if virtue can be served with olives. The philosopher sighs, finishes his drink, and declares the empire doomed. Again, Rome is full of doomed philosophers. That's what makes it so lively. Outside, a flute begins to play. The notes wander through the tavern door like an uninvited guest. Someone claps in rhythm. Someone else shouts for silence. Both are ignored. The melody wins. You lean back, letting the sound and smoke wrap around you. The light flickers, painting faces with moving fire. For a moment, everyone looks holy, even the drunk man trying to kiss his cup. Shadows dance across the walls, shaped like soldiers, lovers, ghosts. Maybe they're all the same thing. You start to understand that Roman nights are not about rest, but release. The day demands perfection, the right words, the right posture, the right expression of loyalty, but the night forgives. It's the empire's only mercy. The tavern keeper brings a plate of lentils and bread. You hadn't ordered it, but she doesn't care. You pay anyway. The bread is hard, the lentils overcooked, yet somehow satisfying. Hunger, like history, lowers your standards. Two men nearby start singing a drinking song dedicated to Bacchus. Their harmonies are tragic, but their enthusiasm heroic. A woman joins in with a tambourine, missing every beat but none of the spirit. The philosopher looks away, muttering something about decline. Decline, you realize, is just another word for fun someone else is having. You finish your wine and step back into the street. The air outside feels cooler, thinner, almost honest. A stray dog trots past carrying a scrap of bread, Rome's unofficial mascot. The moon hangs low, full and yellow, like a coin too large to spend. The stones underfoot gleam. Somewhere far off, the Tiber murmurs its eternal nonsense. You walk aimlessly, passing doorways that glow with lamplight. Behind one curtain, laughter. Behind another, quiet sobbing. The city keeps both sounds equally. On a corner, a group of women are gathered around a fortune teller. She stirs ashes in a bronze bowl, murmuring about omens and lovers. One woman gasps, another laughs, a third spits for luck. You watch for a moment, then move on. Rome believes in everything, which is almost the same as believing in nothing. Down the street, the noise swells again. Another tavern, this one rowdier. You catch a fragment of song. Drink, for tomorrow we may serve someone worse. You smile. Timeless advice. Inside, a crowd of workers shout across the room. One claims his cousin once saw Caesar himself buying bread like an ordinary man. The others call him a liar. A bet is made, drinks exchanged, pride lost. The night continues its patient work of erasing reason. You find a place in the corner and order more wine. This one's darker, heavier. It tastes like ambition, the kind that burns twice, going down and coming back up. You sip slowly, feeling the warmth spread. The table under your hand is sticky with centuries of conversation. Someone bumps into you, mutters an apology, then sits beside you uninvited. He's young, dressed decently, smells of perfume and arrogance. He tells you he's a poet. Of course he is. Everyone in Rome is either a poet or a cautionary tale, often both. He begins reciting a verse about love and destiny. It's terrible. You nod anyway. He smiles like you've understood something profound. You haven't. But there is something sweet about his desperation. That ancient human need to be admired before dawn. The tavern fills with smoke and stories. Someone starts dancing, badly. The crowd cheers him on as though he's conquered Gaul. You laugh quietly into your cup. Rome is always at its best when it forgets its Rome. After a while, you step outside again. The street feels alive, lanterns swinging, laughter spilling through the air. You walk toward the river. The breeze off the Tiber carries the scent of water and rot and eternity. A drunk soldier leans against a column, singing to no one in particular. His helmet rests beside him like a sleeping pet. You sit on the edge of a fountain. The water reflects the flickering lights. You think about how fragile joy is here, how easily it cracks under the weight of marble and empire. And yet, every night, people still gather to drink, to argue, to sing, to pretend they're eternal. It's defiance disguised as recreation. The poet from the tavern stumbles out and spots you. He waves, recites another line about moonlight and love. You clap softly, not for the poem but for the attempt. He bows deeply, nearly falls into the fountain, then disappears into the night. You wish him luck. He'll need it. A cool silence follows. Somewhere a door creaks open. Somewhere else, laughter fades. You can almost hear the wine settling in the blood of the city. Slow, rhythmic, warm. Rome is drunk, yes, but also alive in a way that daylight can never manage. The empire may be built on discipline, but its heart beats to the rhythm of intoxication. You stand, stretch, and start walking again. The moon slides between clouds like a shy performer. The air smells of iron and grapes. Your footsteps echo against the stones, joining the soft percussion of distant voices. And you realize something that feels almost profound. The Romans didn't drink to forget. They drank to remember that beneath the armor, the marble, the rhetoric, they were still human. And for one brief, flickering night, that was enough. Morning belongs to senators and soldiers, but the night, that belongs to the audience. You can hear it before you see it. The hum of 1,000 voices swelling like a tide, sandals scuffing on stone, the faint crackle of torches. The forum's marble gleams faintly in the distance, but your path turns towards something livelier. The open-air theaters that glow after sunset like giant stone lanterns. Here, leisure becomes performance. You join the slow-moving crowd, the scent of roasted nuts and sweat thick in the air. Someone selling figs, someone else, scandal. A child waves a wooden mask, shouting about heroes he doesn't understand. Couples argue over seats. A dog weaves through legs, dignified as a senator. When you reach the entrance, a man in a tunic takes your token without looking. His eyes are glazed from hours of this ritual. Rich, poor, freed, slave, all funneling into the same darkness. You step inside and feel the air change. The theater at night feels alive, a breathing creature of stone and sound. The steps are crowded with bodies. The lamps flicker against faces carved by laughter and fatigue. Somewhere above, the stars watch politely, pretending not to judge. The performance hasn't started yet, but the real play is already happening. People greeting, gossiping, pretending not to notice each other. A senator's mistress sits 3 rows away from his wife. Both pretend the other is invisible. Somewhere, a poet whispers lines he hopes someone important overhears. You take your seat and exhale. The stone is cold, grounding. A trumpet sounds. The murmuring fades reluctantly. Then, silence. And from behind the curtain, an actor emerges. He's wearing a mask large enough to be visible from the gods. His voice booms, exaggerated, theatrical. The play begins. It is a comedy tonight, though the line between tragedy and farce in Rome is thinner than a senator as moral code. The jokes are crude, the timing immaculate. The crowd howls, delighted. Laughter in Rome isn't polite. It's full-bodied, a communal exorcism. You laugh too, even when you don't understand. It's contagious. Behind the humor, though, you sense something else. That deep Roman hunger for spectacle. They don't come for subtlety. They come to see themselves reflected, distorted, magnified. The coward mocked, the lover scorned, the gods teased. It's civic therapy through ridicule. The actor stumbles, delivers a line about Caesar's wig, and the crowd erupts again. Somewhere in the stands, a nervous official pretends not to hear. Political satire is a dangerous hobby, but the Romans treat danger like spice, carefully measured, secretly addictive. You watch faces instead of the stage. A baker's apprentice, mouth open in awe. A soldier chuckling through missing teeth. A woman holding her husband's arm a little tighter every time the jokes edge toward obscenity. For a city obsessed with hierarchy, Rome forgets it completely here. For a few hours, everyone is just audience, equal in the glow of shared absurdity. When the scene changes, torches are replaced, musicians strike their lutes, and the crowd murmurs approval. The night feels almost civilized, art as anesthesia, laughter as civic duty. Yet beneath it all, you sense weariness. These people spend their days conquering, calculating, enduring. The theater gives them something simpler, permission to feel ridiculous. You think about the playwright, whoever he is. Some weary man hunched over parchment, trying to wring meaning from chaos. Maybe he's here tonight, hidden in the crowd, watching his words misfire beautifully. Rome is full of writers who never meant to be famous, and actors who never learned to stop being gods. The play lurches toward its finale. Someone pretends to die, someone else pretends to care, and the chorus belts out a moral no one intends to remember. The crowd applauds wildly anyway. Catharsis achieved. When it's over, people pour back into the streets. The torches sway. The laughter continues. You walk with them, carried by the slow current of post-performance joy. A man quotes a line badly, and his friend corrects him worse. 2 women argue whether the lead actor was divine or merely handsome. A drunk insists the entire play was about him. It probably was, in a way. You wander toward another venue, smaller, rougher, tucked between insulae. This one doesn't host comedies but mimes, wordless, bawdy, borderline criminal performances. The crowd presses close. No seats, no tickets, just bodies and expectation. A woman steps forward, painted gold from head to toe. She mimes a queen betrayed by her lover, stabbing herself with exaggerated grace. The crowd cheers, whistles, tosses coins. Then someone throws a chicken leg. The queen dodges, bows, keeps going. The line between art and riot is paper thin. You feel a kind of admiration. Rome doesn't separate sacred from stupid. It blends them until both make sense. When the mime ends, you drift toward the Circus Maximus. The races are long over, but the track still glows faintly under the moon. A few stragglers linger, recounting victories that never happened. You sit on the edge of a stone barrier, staring at the vast, empty field. The silence hums. It's easy to forget that, for most Romans, spectacle isn't luxury, it's medicine. The noise drowns the questions no one can answer. Why they work, why they fight, why they age in service of something they'll never touch. Laughter, games, theater, all ways to make meaning bearable. You hear footsteps. A man approaches carrying a torch, his tunic spattered with wine. He grins, sits beside you, and says, "You missed the good part." You ask what that was. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. The good part's always the one you remember wrong. Then he stands, wobbles slightly, and disappears into the dark. You sit alone, listening to the wind move across the arena's stones. You can almost hear the ghosts of cheers, of horses pounding the earth, of lives briefly illuminated by speed. The Romans loved spectacle because it reminded them how small they were, and how magnificent smallness could feel when multiplied by thousands. The torches burn lower. The city quiets. Somewhere, an actor removes his mask, his face red and sweating beneath the paint. Somewhere else, a poet scratches out a new joke about the gods, hoping tomorrow's censor has a sense of humor. You stand, stretch, and walk back toward the heart of Rome. The streets are nearly empty now, but laughter still lingers like incense. And you think, maybe this was the empire's real genius, not its roads or its legions, but its ability to turn anxiety into applause, to laugh at what frightened it, to drink, to cheer, to survive. Because in the end, the Romans didn't build theaters to escape life. They built them to bear it. And as the last torch flickers out, you realize something quietly beautiful. The show never really ends here. It just waits for the next night. The night has thinned, but not softened. Somewhere between exhaustion and ritual, the Romans begin their real devotion, not to Jupiter, not to Venus, but to Fortuna, the goddess of luck. If daylight belongs to order, the night belongs to chance. You find yourself once more in the crooked belly of the city, where taverns lean against each other for balance. The lamps burn low, oil thick with soot, and voices float out into the street like ghosts rehearsing their lines. At first glance, it looks like chaos. Laughter, shouting, fragments of songs. But there's a rhythm beneath it, a pattern older than empire, the sound of dice hitting stone. You follow it into a courtyard half lit by torches. A group of men crouch in a loose circle, heads bowed, eyes gleaming, not in prayer, in calculation. Between them, the bones clatter. Tesserae, cubes of ivory, bone, and superstition. Someone curses Fortuna under his breath. Someone else kisses his dice before throwing. Someone else, the veteran gambler, doesn't look at all. He just listens, as though the goddess whispers in the sound of the roll. You stand at the edge, unseen but welcome. No one cares who watches. The game is older than names. Coins clink softly as they change hands. Not many. A few bronze asses, a silver denarius now and then. But here, value isn't in the metal. It's in the moment the dice are still in the air, before gravity and fate shake hands. You can smell sweat, wine, and dust. The torches hiss as insects throw themselves into the flames. A drunk leans too close to the circle and is gently pushed away. He laughs, forgiving the rejection as though it were divine will. "Come, stranger," someone calls. "Try your fortune." You hesitate, then kneel. The dice are warm, smooth from countless hands. You roll them once, testing the weight. They feel heavier than expected, as if filled with memory. When they tumble across the stones, time slows. The players lean forward. You watch the faces, not the numbers. 2 sixes. The crowd groans. The veteran nods. Fortuna approves. You win a coin. It's thin, bent, nearly worthless. But the laughter that follows is real. Someone pours you wine. It tastes like vinegar, soaked in ambition. But you drink anyway. You're part of the ritual now. The dice roll again, and again. With every throw, the air thickens. Someone starts singing softly, an old soldier's song about losing everything but the will to bet again. The chorus is only 2 words, Aleia Iacta. The dice are cast. Every Roman knows those words, half prayer, half confession. You look around and notice who's playing, not just drunks and laborers, but merchants, soldiers, even a priest pretending to be someone else. The empire may divide men by wealth, but the dice divide them by nerve. Some play for coins, others play for something quieter, distraction, the sound of luck covering the silence of thought. A young man loses repeatedly. His smile stiffens, his knuckles whiten. You see his pride melting like wax. Finally, he stands, throws his last coin into the circle, and walks away without looking back. The others fall silent. The veteran mutters, Fortuna loves those who leave early. Then he throws again. The city itself seems to roll with them, unpredictable, eternal. You wander away after a while, dizzy with wine and superstition. The street outside is quieter. The lamps flicker. Somewhere, a woman hums a lullaby to no one. The sound of dice still echoes in your head. You realize that Rome, in every sense, is a gamble. Its wars, its politics, its loves, all bets placed on a future that never quite arrives. At the corner, 2 children play their own game with pebbles. They don't understand fortune yet, but they practice. Every empire trains its gamblers early. Further along, you find a group of older men sitting outside a closed bathhouse. They're playing a different kind of game, riddles, insults, philosophy disguised as competition. One says, "Why do men chase glory when peace is free?" Another replies, "Because peace doesn't applaud." They all laugh, knowing it's true. This too is a game. Words for currency, pride for collateral. A slave passes carrying a torch, the light catching his tired face. His master follows behind, humming, tossing a coin in the air. A small rebellion against certainty. The metal flashes gold, then disappears into his palm. Heads or tails, emperor or exile. You remember how the Romans spoke of Fortuna, not as kind, not as cruel, just indifferent. She turns her wheel because she must. To worship her is to admit how little control you have. Somewhere, a temple bell rings. The hour changes. The dice games fade, but the philosophy remains. Nothing is guaranteed except motion. You stop at a fountain again, same as last night. Someone has left a few coins in the water. Offerings for luck. You drop yours in too, the one you won earlier. It lands with a soft metallic sigh. You feel strangely lighter. The breeze picks up, carrying the smell of river mist and roasted grain. Rome exhales. Somewhere, a man shouts for one more round of wine. Somewhere else, someone wins a fortune and loses a friend. The city balances both easily. As you walk back toward your lodging, the moon high and pale above, you realize what the Romans already knew. Luck isn't a gift. It's an illusion that keeps life bearable. They worship Fortuna not because she's real, but because she's fair, equally merciless to all. And in that strange fairness, Rome finds its peace. Rome at night smells different when love is awake. The air is thicker. Perfume, sweat, honey, smoke, all mixed together in a way that suggests both holiness and regret. You walk through a narrow lane lined with shuttered bakeries and half-open doors. Someone singing softly behind a curtain, a tune too sweet to be sober. A cat meows somewhere above, unimpressed by human passion. The city that once conquered the world now busies itself conquering each other. Romans, for all their talk of honor and reason, are deeply committed to pleasure. They write poems about it, carve it into walls, whisper it across dinner tables. Every street here could tell a story, most of them not safe for marble. You pass a villa with a courtyard glowing gold. Inside, laughter and music spill into the night. The scent of roses drifts through the gate, followed by the sharper tang of wine. Servants move like shadows, refilling cups before they're empty. You glance through the bars, a gathering of Rome's comfortable class. Senators, poets, the sort of people who always look rehearsed. At the center reclines a woman, draped in silk, thin enough to be a rumor. She laughs, not loudly, but with the calm of someone used to being listened to. Her hand rests on the shoulder of a man who might be her husband, or her poet, or her next regret. It doesn't matter. Romans love the performance of love, the gestures, the rehearsed spontaneity, the politics of affection. The heart, for them, is a stage. You keep walking. Down the hill, the houses grow smaller, the laughter louder. Here, love looks different, simpler, hungrier. A man leans against a wall, whispering to a woman whose hair smells of bread and smoke. He swears eternal devotion. She swears he still owes her for last time. Both are right. From another doorway, a burst of laughter, followed by the sound of something breaking. You pause, listening. The voices rise, fall, then dissolve into silence and breath. You smile. The empire has many languages, but this one everyone speaks. A group of young men pass, arm in arm, singing a love song badly. The lyrics are ancient, the kind that sound noble until you translate them. A few women watch from windows, amused, unimpressed, maybe tempted. For a moment, the night feels alive with a kind of warm foolishness. The Romans know love rarely ends well, but they chase it anyway, not out of hope, but out of habit. It's their favorite form of self-inflicted poetry. You wander toward the baths, still steaming faintly under the moonlight. Though closed for the night, a few silhouettes linger at the entrance. Lovers meeting in secret, slaves, freedmen, citizens, all pretending that the darkness makes them equals. You pause to listen. Whispers, a soft gasp, the gentle clink of jewelry hastily removed. There's tenderness in the air, but also something heavier. The awareness that in Rome, love is a transaction with a very flexible price. Farther down, near the Subura, the pleasure houses begin. Painted walls, colored lamps, laughter leaking through shutters. You don't enter. Not yet. You stand across the street, watching as men come and go, each carrying the same expression, half thrill, half guilt, mostly exhaustion. Inside, there's a hierarchy even to desire. Courtesans for the rich, working girls for the rest, everyone performing the same illusion, that something temporary can feel eternal if you close your eyes fast enough. And yet, it's not all cynical. Rome's poets, the honest ones, the broke ones, write about love with the kind of sincerity only desperation can afford. Ovid calls it an art. Catullus calls it a wound. Horace pretends it's a hobby. They all bleed from the same place. You step into a tavern to escape the chill. It's quieter here. Couples sitting close, voices low. A musician plucks a slow tune on his lyre, one string slightly out of tune. The sound is imperfect, which somehow makes it more beautiful. A man sits alone at the bar, tracing his finger around the rim of his cup. His face is red, his eyes fixed on the floor. He's not drunk enough yet to lie to himself. The tavern keeper, a woman older than Patience, watches him with quiet understanding. She's seen every version of heartbreak the Empire can produce, none of them original. You sit beside him. He mutters something about love being a sickness. You nod. He smiles without joy. At least this one's fatal, he says, and finishes his drink. Outside again, the night deepens. Rome's streets are emptying, but its rooftops are busy. Lovers meet there, safer than the streets, more dangerous than the heart. From above, the city must look like a constellation of candle flames, each one flickering for a different reason. You climb a small hill overlooking the Forum. The wind carries the sound of laughter, faint, disorganized, human. You can see torchlight glinting off tiled roofs, a moving pattern of gold against the black. Somewhere, someone sings a love song to a god who isn't listening. You think about how strange it is that an empire so obsessed with control allows itself to fall apart every night for love. The generals plan wars, the senators plan speeches, but the people plan encounters. They risk reputations, coins, sometimes lives, for a moment of warmth that burns too quickly. Maybe that's the secret to Rome's endurance. Not its armies, not its laws, but its refusal to stop wanting, because love here isn't romantic. It's stubborn. It survives censorship, hypocrisy, even marriage. It laughs at logic, ignores philosophy, and mocks restraint. And it always finds an audience. A gust of wind stirs your cloak. You glance down and see a small shrine by the path. A statue of Venus, chipped but still beautiful. Someone has left offerings. A ring, a sprig of rosemary, a pair of dice. Love and luck, forever confused. You kneel briefly, out of habit more than belief. The marble is cold under your hand. You whisper something, not a prayer, exactly, but a thought. That maybe love isn't about triumph or tragedy, but the small mercy of being remembered. The torch beside the shrine flickers. The flame bends, then steadies. You take that as an answer. By the time you reach the bottom of the hill, the lamps are almost out. The air smells of ashes and roses. Somewhere, a woman laughs again. That same, knowing, world-weary laugh that belongs to every century. Rome will burn someday, but not tonight. Tonight, it hums softly with the sounds of affection, foolishness, and forgiveness. The empire's most persistent citizens. You pause, looking up at the sky. The stars are faint, outshone by the city's glow, but still there, patient, distant, unbothered, like old lovers who've seen this story too many times. And as you walk back through the cooling streets, you realize that for all its noise, all its sin, Rome's nights are tender things. They may stink of wine and sweat, but beneath it all, there is something gentle, a promise that even in a city of stone, the heart keeps trying to move. Love, lust, laughter, the holy trinity of sleepless Rome. And somewhere, Fortuna smiles. By now, you've learned that Rome never truly sleeps. It merely changes its mask. When the feasts fade and the lovers vanish into their borrowed silences, the city begins another performance. One less polished, more honest. The nocturnal Rome, half asleep and half awake, a mixture of beauty, danger, and damp stone. You step out from the courtyard where the last candle gutters. The air is cool, damp, with river mist. The streets stretch ahead like veins, pulsing faintly with torchlight. Above, laundry hangs between buildings like ghost banners, whispering in the breeze. A dog trots past carrying a stolen crust of bread. Somewhere, an old man coughs through an open window. From the far end of the alley, a watchman's rattle echoes, 3 sharp clicks, followed by the bored voice of authority. All is well. He's lying. All is never well in Rome after midnight. It's only interesting. You start walking toward the Subura again, the city's restless stomach. The paving stones glisten, slick with spilled wine and the day's debris. The lamps sway, their flames bending like tired dancers. The smell shifts with every step. Smoke, fish, sewage, perfume. A fragrance so complex that no perfumer would dare bottle it. From an open doorway, laughter bursts out. A group of men spill into the street, arms linked, singing off key. Their tunics are stained, their sandals missing. One raises a jug and shouts, "To Rome, the mother of all mistakes." The others cheer as though he's quoted scripture. They stumble away, leaving behind the echo of a joy too fragile to last till dawn. You pass a beggar asleep against a wall, his head resting on a basket. Next to him, a clay lamp flickers weakly, fed with more hope than oil. On the opposite side of the street, a painted sign advertises a bathhouse, warm water, clean towels, discretion. The door is closed now, but steam still curls from the cracks. Someone forgot to turn off the luxury. A sudden squeal, a cartwheel catching on a stone. A mule snorts, its driver swears by 12 gods at once. You step aside as the cart lurches past, loaded with amphorae clinking softly. Night deliveries never end. The city's appetite doesn't understand time. Bread must rise, wine must travel, gossip must circulate. A woman in a grey cloak walks briskly ahead of you, her sandals clicking in even rhythm. At first she looks like any other passerby, but then you notice the dagger at her belt. Small, practical, very unromantic. She glances back once, not in fear, but habit. Everyone in Rome checks the shadows. The shadows often check back. Farther on, 2 figures crouch near a doorway, whispering fast. A deal, probably. Bread, rumor, or something more valuable. Information. You hear the chink of coins, the sound of something exchanged, the faint sigh of trust leaving the room. The watchman passes again, slower this time. He squints at you, nods, moves on. His torch throws long shapes across the walls, briefly revealing faded graffiti. Livia loves Gaius. Below it, someone has scrawled, "So does everyone." Rome's earliest social network, permanent and merciless. You stop at a crossroads shrine. A small altar to Mercury stands beneath a fig tree, offerings scattered around it. A few flowers, a crust of bread, a clay coin stamped with a smiling face. The candle has burned out, but the smell of wax lingers. The city is full of these small protections, tiny negotiations with the invisible. Each one a whispered plea. Keep me safe until morning. Beyond the shrine, the street widens. You can see the outline of the amphitheater against the sky, massive and quiet, like a sleeping god. Its arches hold pockets of darkness that feel deeper than the night itself. You imagine the roar of the crowds, the clash of steel, the smell of sweat and fear. Now, only wind moves through it, humming in a key no human voice can follow. Rome's silence is never empty. It just lowers its voice. At the next corner, you find a tavern still open, its door half closed to keep out the watch. Inside, a few stragglers drink in murmured companionship. The keeper polishes cups that will never shine. You order water. He gives you wine instead, because in Rome, virtue is suspicious. The liquid is dark, gritty, honest. You drink, then leave a coin that's probably counterfeit. Balance restored. Back outside, the sky has deepened from black to blue-gray. Dawn is still hours away, but the air carries the faint chill of transition. The nocturnal shift of Rome, thieves, lovers, drunks, philosophers, begins to fade. Their kingdom ends where the bakers begin. You turn down a smaller alley, barely wide enough for a man to pass. The stones are uneven, the smell sharp, vinegar and garbage, but also bread rising somewhere ahead. You follow the scent until you find its source, a bakery already awake. Inside, the glow of the oven paints everything gold. The baker, eyes half closed, slides loaves into the fire with the grace of someone too tired to miss. He nods when he sees you, wordless. You nod back, Rome's truest language, mutual exhaustion. He breaks off a small piece of warm crust and hands it to you. You bite in, crisp, smoky, perfect. It tastes like survival. Outside, a rooster crows from the wrong district, proud of his confusion. As you eat, you realize how the city functions, not through order, but momentum. Each class, each creature, moving just enough to keep the next one alive. The senators may think they rule Rome, but it's the bakers and thieves who keep time from stopping. You wander again, chewing, watching the horizon pale behind the rooftops. Somewhere, a door slams. Somewhere else, a baby cries, greeted by an irritated curse from the next apartment. The night unravels in slow threads. Then you notice it, a strange quiet. Not peace, exactly, but pause. The kind of silence that lives between heartbeats. For a brief moment, even the Tiber seems to hold its breath. The lamps burn lower, the dogs stop barking, and Rome, impossibly, feels small. You stand there, halfway between shadow and dawn, and think about everything this city hides after dark. The laughter, the crimes, the love letters carved in plaster, the tired prayers muttered by men who no longer believe. The streets keep their secrets well. By morning, they'll look clean, respectable, ancient, but you'll know better. You've seen the pulse beneath the marble. A breeze sweeps through, carrying the scent of baking bread and river water. It brushes your face like a benediction. The night has done its work. It can rest now. You turn toward the forum, where the first traders will soon set up their stalls. The torches fade one by one behind you, replaced by the faintest blush of light. The nocturnal streets retreat into memory, folding their laughter and danger back into the stones. Rome exhales, and as you step into the edge of dawn, you realize that you've been walking through something far larger than a city. You've been walking through the beating heart of sleepless humanity, messy, merciful, and magnificently alive. The later the hour, the softer Rome becomes. The wine is gone, the laughter fades, and what remains is something older, the quiet superstition that even the gods might be awake. You walk through a city that feels emptied out, but not deserted. The lamps burn low, each one flickering like a heartbeat. In the silence between footsteps, you can hear the world exhale. The slow breathing of stone, river, and smoke. It's the sacred hour, the time when Romans remember they believe in everything, just in case. A faint chanting drifts from the direction of the Aventine Hill. It's not music exactly, more a rhythm that belongs to the earth, slow, circular, patient. You follow it, drawn by curiosity or fate, or maybe just boredom, which in Rome is often the same thing. At a crossroads, you find them. A small group gathered around a makeshift altar. A few candles, a jug of wine, a loaf of bread. Nothing grand, nothing official. These aren't priests, just neighbors, the kind of people who know how fragile luck can be. A woman pours wine onto the ground. The liquid darkens the dust like a wound. She murmurs a few words to the lares, the household gods. Protect our homes, protect our children, protect us from ourselves. You stand quietly, feeling the heat of the candles, the faint sweetness of burning olive oil. Someone offers you a sip from the jug. You take it. It tastes of iron and faith. There's no fear here, no grandeur, just gratitude dressed in ritual. Rome's religion isn't about belief, it's about maintenance. The world, they think, is a delicate mechanism that will fall apart if you stop feeding it offerings. You leave the group and keep walking. The moonlight turns the cobblestones silver. In the distance, the temple of Vesta glows faintly, the eternal flame still burning, guarded by the Vestal virgins who never sleep. Somewhere inside, a woman stirs the coals, adding another branch to the fire that must never die. You pause outside the temple gates. The air smells of ash and rosemary. You can hear the faint crackle of the sacred hearth, like the heartbeat of the empire itself. Rome believes that as long as that flame lives, so does she. It's a simple superstition. But then, most survival stories are. Across the street, a drunk man kneels before a statue of Jupiter, muttering something between apology and complaint. He offers the last of his bread, breaks it in half, and eats both pieces. The god remains silent. The man nods as if forgiven. Every Roman negotiates with divinity on their own terms. Some flatter the gods, some threaten them, some simply outlast them. As you wander farther, you notice shrines everywhere, small ones tucked into corners, half hidden behind vines, dusty but not forgotten. Each one a small contract between human and mystery. You stop at one dedicated to Mercury, god of travelers and thieves, fitting company for the night. Someone has left a tiny bronze coin in the bowl, along with a strip of parchment scrawled with a name. A lost lover, maybe. A hope written too quietly to say aloud. You add your coin, habit again, and whisper something you don't quite believe. The wind answers in a language that sounds like leaves. Down by the river, the rituals change. Bonfires burn low along the bank, remnants of the old ways, older even than Rome. Farmers, sailors, midwives, the kind of people who never stop talking to the earth. You approach one fire. Around it, a few figures move slowly, singing. They toss herbs into the flames, thyme, laurel, fennel, each one chosen for its power to persuade unseen forces. The smoke smells strange but comforting, a recipe half forgotten. A young girl steps forward, holding a clay figurine. She whispers something to it, then throws it into the fire. The clay cracks, glows, and vanishes. Her mother nods, satisfied. Whatever curse or fear that little figure carried, it's gone now. The girl smiles, lighter. You sit on a rock, watching the flames lick at the night air. Sparks rise, twisting, like souls changing their minds. The river reflects it all. Fire above, fire below, the perfect Roman symmetry of chaos pretending to be order. An old man beside you pokes at the embers with a stick. You think the gods listen? He asks, not looking up. You shrug. Maybe. He chuckles. That's enough for them. Then he stands, stretches, and limps away, leaving behind the faint smell of smoke and resignation. The fire crackles on. You stare into it until shapes begin to appear. Faces, animals, maybe memories. The Romans say that fire carries messages to the divine. You wonder what message yours would send. Probably something small. Probably thank you, or forgive me, or I'm still here. The smoke drifts upward, and for a moment you imagine it, carrying the voices of all those who've stood here before you. Bakers, soldiers, lovers, slaves. Their words mix and dissolve, rising toward a sky that's heard everything already. The moon slips behind a cloud. The firelight grows sharper, redder. You can feel the warmth against your face, the kind that reminds you you're still made of something soft beneath all this stone. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows too early. The figures around the fire begin to scatter. A few stay behind, tending the last embers. You stand, brush the ash from your hands, and walk back toward the city's heart. The temples loom in silence now, columns catching moonlight, altars cold, statues expressionless. You wonder if the gods get lonely, trapped in marble bodies while their worshippers go home drunk and happy. You cross the forum. The wind carries the smell of old incense and wet stone. The sacred and the profane mingle so easily here you can't tell where one ends. Maybe that's the secret. Rome doesn't separate holiness from habit. It simply lives among its gods the way you live among your furniture. Reverently when guests visit, carelessly the rest of the time. At the far edge, you stop before a statue of Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings and endings. One face looks toward the fading night, the other toward the dawn. You meet both gazes and feel oddly seen. A voice in your head, your own probably, whispers that the Romans didn't invent faith. They just learned how to schedule it. The sky is paling now, a faint gray pushing against the black. The first baker's carts rumble through the streets again, wheels creaking, donkeys sighing. The fires along the river shrink, their smoke mixing with the morning mist. You glance back once more. The last flame flares, then falls into ash. The wind scatters it over the water, carrying it out to sea, and in that moment you realize something simple and beautiful. For all their noise and pride, the Romans still needed their little fires, their whispered bargains, their tiny rituals against oblivion, because in the end, that's all faith really is, a way of lighting the dark. The city is finally quiet, almost. Somewhere far below the Palatine Hill, the taverns still hum, the gamblers still whisper prayers to Fortuna, and a few lonely lamps flicker over the Tiber. But here, above it all, Rome pretends to rest. You climb the marble steps slowly. The air feels different up here, cleaner, colder, tinged with cedar smoke from the braziers that never quite go out. The villas of the powerful sit in neat rows, silent except for the faint hiss of torches in the wind. Their gardens are perfectly trimmed, their fountains still murmuring as if afraid to stop. It looks peaceful. It isn't. Inside these houses, sleep is an uncertain visitor. Senators toss on silk sheets, dreaming of rivals. Generals mutter commands to imaginary legions. Merchants count coins behind closed eyelids, lips moving in perfect arithmetic. The rich lie awake, haunted not by hunger, but by maintenance. The exhausting effort of staying on top of a world built on someone else's back. You pass the villa of one such man, Lucius something, an important name that sounds like it should be carved in stone. His gate is guarded, but the guards are slumped, drowsy. Inside, through an open window, candlelight trembles over walls painted with impossible calm. Gardens, gods, lovers frozen mid-gesture. The paintings sleep better than their owner ever will. From somewhere deep within comes a sound. Not weeping exactly, not laughter either. Maybe just someone talking to ghosts. You keep walking. At another villa, a slave quietly refills the oil in a hallway lamp. He moves like a shadow, trained to apologize. Behind him, muffled voices. A senator and his wife arguing softly about omens, dinner invitations, and a dream she swears was prophetic. It was just indigestion, he insists. She doesn't answer. The silence between them stretches until it becomes another form of worship. Everywhere you look, perfection requires rehearsal. Even rest must be staged. You pause at a terrace overlooking the sleeping city. Below, Rome sprawls like a vast animal at peace with its own hunger. You can see the faint glow of the fires by the river, the tiny lamps of late bakers, the long dark ribbon of the Tiber threading through it all. For a moment, you imagine the emperor himself, up there on the Palatine's highest point, surrounded by marble, gold, and the heavy perfume of power. Surely he sleeps well, you think. He doesn't. Power, it turns out, snores softly, but never truly dreams. Inside the imperial palace, the corridors are lined with guards who pretend not to hear what they shouldn't. Eunuchs whisper updates. Courtiers pace. A slave tends the brazier, terrified of letting the flame die. In a chamber too large for comfort, the emperor lies awake. The ceiling above him is painted with stars, a private imitation of heaven. His eyes trace them, counting victories, betrayals, and unfinished speeches. He turns on his side. The bed creaks. The empire shifts. You'd think that ruling the world would bring peace of mind. It doesn't. The higher you climb, the thinner the air. Even the gods, carved in stone, look down uneasily, as if they know they might be replaced next season. The emperor closes his eyes. Behind them, visions flicker, senators smiling too wide, barbarians too quiet, omens too vague. He mutters something, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. The line between the two is thin at his altitude. Outside, a nightingale sings from the palace garden. It shouldn't tea. Gilat. It is far too late in the season, but it does anyway, out of habit or rebellion. The song drifts through the corridors, echoing off marble like an idea no one wants to claim. Down the hill, a magistrate wakes suddenly, sweating. He dreamed he was poor again, the worst nightmare for a Roman of means. He gets up, drinks watered wine, stares at his own reflection in a silver mirror. The face that looks back seems older, heavier. He tells himself it's the candlelight. Somewhere else, a rich widow can't sleep either. She sits by her window, watching the sky, counting the ships she owns by the stars she's decided represent them. Each one a speck of gold, moving farther away. Even the gods of wealth must envy the exhausted. Meanwhile, in the streets below, a child sleeps soundly under a broken cart. The stars do not belong to him, and that's why he rests easy. You walk quietly past another villa. Through a cracked door, you glimpse a small room, not for masters, but for servants. A dozen of them sleep in rows, their breaths rising and falling together like waves. It's the only harmony Rome ever achieves. You realize that the poor sleep better not because they have less to lose, but because they've already lost it. The rich, on the other hand, are never really asleep. They only practice for death. Farther up, you reach a shrine, a private one, built for a family that clearly wanted the gods to know their address. Inside, an oil lamp burns before a statue of Minerva. The goddess's eyes catch the light, looking alive for an instant, then not. Offerings litter the floor, coins, jewelry, a pair of children's sandals. Someone is praying here regularly, probably for safety, which means they don't have it. You sit on the edge of the steps and watch the horizon begin to fade from black to gray. The roofs of the city below are silver now, the river turning from ink to glass. Behind you, a door opens softly. An old man steps out, wearing the kind of robe that announces wealth to anyone who cares. He doesn't notice you at first. He's too busy watching the same dawn. His hands tremble slightly. Age, guilt, or both. You can't buy sleep, he says suddenly, without turning. His voice is calm, resigned. You can rent it for a few hours maybe, but the dreams still belong to someone else. You say nothing. He glances at you, surprised, but not alarmed. In this city, strangers appear and vanish like thoughts. He smiles faintly, nods once, and returns inside. You sit there a while longer. The wind rises, smelling of cypress and smoke. The lamps along the path sputter and die one by one, their purpose complete. Somewhere behind you, a rooster crows. The empire wakes again, or at least pretends to. The powerful stretch, complain, demand breakfast. The slaves hurry. The servants bow. The machinery of illusion begins another day's performance. And as you watch the light spill across the marble, you realize how delicate it all is. This empire of insomnia. The senators who fear silence. The generals who fear peace. The emperors who fear dreams. Rome survives not because its people sleep, but because they refuse to. For them, rest is treason, quiet is suspicion, and sleep, that small surrender, is a luxury best left to the powerless. You stand, brush the dust from your cloak, and start down the hill. Behind you, the villas glow in the early sun, pretending that nothing inside them ever stirs. Ahead, the city yawns awake, already inventing new ways to stay busy. Somewhere, a baker pulls the first loaves from the oven. Somewhere, a poet drafts a verse about peace he doesn't believe in. Somewhere, a senator blinks in daylight and mistakes exhaustion for virtue. The empire continues, and for now, at least, the powerful can rest, not in sleep, but in the illusion that morning forgives everything. The sun has returned, but Rome still feels half asleep. Its mornings are only nights rearranged. You stand at the edge of the forum where vendors rebuild their stalls, sweeping away the ash and laughter of the hours before. The marble glows pale. The statues blink back into duty. Somewhere, a senator rehearses outrage. A slave hums as he drags yesterday's trash toward tomorrow. And yet, in the hush between heartbeats, you can still feel the pulse of the night beneath the stones, warm, slow, alive. Every empire dreams of eternity. Rome merely tried to schedule it. Day was for conquest. Night was for confession. You start walking again, past the same taverns that now smell of soap and regret, the same alleys, rinsed but not clean. A child chases pigeons through puddles left by the street washers. Each splash erases another memory. The baker from before nods at you, his face dusted white with flour, his smile the only honest one in the empire. You nod back. The transaction is wordless, acknowledgement without expectation. The city hums, wagons creak, priests chant, someone shouts about fresh figs. The daily illusion restarts exactly where it ended. But if you listen closely, beneath the noise, the night still murmurs. You hear it in the slap of sandals, in the whisper of curtains closing, in the faint echo of dice somewhere deep inside a courtyard. The same players, new bets, the same prayers, slightly edited for daylight. Rome lives in layers. Daylight for ambition, darkness for truth. And truth, like everything else here, is rented by the hour. You wander toward the river. The Tiber glitters now, pretending to be clean. Barges drift past, loaded with grain, amphorae, and gossip. The water carries it all. The empire's bloodstream, thick and eternal. At the bridge, an old woman sells charms, shells, bones, scraps of ribbon. Protection, she says, from envy, illness, love. You buy one, not because you believe, but because belief itself feels like good manners. She ties it around your wrist, muttering blessings older than Latin. The knot holds, for now. The wind shifts, carrying the smell of tar, bread, and lilies from a funeral procession crossing the other side. Rome manages grief the way it manages everything, publicly, efficiently, beautifully. The mourners wear immaculate white. The dead man's name will be forgotten before the wine is poured. You follow the procession for a while until it turns down a quiet street lined with tombs. The Romans keep their dead close, a reminder perhaps that every road leads somewhere predictable. The mausoleums glow faintly in the morning light. You touch one as you pass. The marble is cold, smoother than honesty. Inside each rests a name carved deeper than memory. Senators, merchants, lovers, slaves, all equally silent now. The empire's final democracy. A crow lands nearby, tilts its head, studies you. You offer it a crumb from your pocket. It hops closer, takes it, flies off toward the city. Even the scavengers have errands here. You keep walking until the tombs thin out, replaced by gardens. Wild thyme grows between the stones, smelling faintly of smoke and sunlight. A fountain murmurs, the same sound the city uses for prayer. And then, suddenly, peace. Not the fragile kind that follows exhaustion, but the quiet balance that happens when nothing demands to be noticed. You sit on a low wall, feeling the warmth of the stone through your cloak. The breeze smells of olives and distant sea. For a long moment, you simply exist. No history, no empire, no gods. Just you, the air, and the faint echo of laughter that refuses to die. You think of everyone you met tonight, the gamblers, the lovers, the bakers, the sleepless rich, all of them chasing something that slips through their fingers as soon as they grasp it. Fortune, pleasure, meaning, sleep. Maybe that's what eternity really is. Not endless time, but endless wanting. A cart rumbles past, its driver singing softly to his mule. The song is older than memory, the melody too plain to be forgotten. It drifts through the air like dust from a collapsed century. You rise and begin walking back toward the city. The streets are brighter now, the shadows shorter, the illusions louder. Children argue over pebbles. A soldier yawns on guard duty. A woman scolds a rooster for arrogance. Life, fully restored. Yet under it all, you can still sense the night, coiled, patient, waiting for the sun to lose interest again. Because Rome's truest rhythm isn't the march of legions or the speeches in marble halls. It's the breathing of its nights, laughter, dice, whispered prayers, soft footsteps on uneven stone. The pulse that kept the empire human Long after it tried to be divine, you pause one last time at the crossroads. The shrine to Mercury stands there still, its candle freshly lit by some unseen hand. The flame flickers, steady but humble. You bow slightly, not from faith, but gratitude, for the noise, the smell, the absurd beauty of it all. Rome will crumble someday. All empires do. The temples will fall, the coins will rust, the language will twist itself into something else. But the knights will survive. Somewhere, always, there will be laughter in the dark, lovers whispering, dice clattering against stone. And maybe, if you listen carefully, you'll still hear this city breathing beneath the dust, unrepentant, amused, eternal. The lamps gutter out behind you, the sky burns white, the world begins again. If you enjoyed drifting through this piece of the past, maybe leave a like, or just let the story carry you to sleep. Thank you for wandering these quiet Roman nights with me. Until next time, rest well, dream kindly, and remember that somewhere out there, the city still hums beneath the stars.